What's good, everybody? I'm Jerry, about to check out 16 most emotional WWE moments. This video is by Ruthless Fusion. I know for a fact that when John Cena retired last month at Saturday Night's main event, December 13th, was an emotional night. That whole week leading up to his last match was an emotional week. The video package that they put together for him, I definitely shed a tear watching that video, man. So we're about to hop into this video and see the 15 most emotional WWE moments. Let's check it out. Let's go.
From retirements to betrayals, from championship wins to shocking deaths.
I say when Eddie Guerrero died, when Roman Reigns announced his
with the
leukemia,
final bow of the Heartbreak Kid. At WrestleMania 26, Shawn Michaels put his legendary career on the line against The Undertaker's undefeated streak. After a grueling battle, The Undertaker delivered one final tombstone and put an end to HBK's career. The following night on Raw, an emotional Michaels addressed the WWE Universe one last time. The fans showed their respect as one of the greatest performers in wrestling history took his final curtain call. Even The Undertaker himself came out on the stage to tip his hat to HBK. It was a reminder that even our heroes can't go on forever, and watching HBK hang up his boots after giving us so many unforgettable moments hit different. The man who had stolen the show countless times was now stealing our hearts one last time. And yes, we don't talk about the Crown Jewel disaster from 2018.
I wish
but
that
as one
never
legend
happened.
Story ended, another's was about to come to a screeching halt just 1 year later.
Edge.
Just days after
and I remember watching Edge's retirement.
The WWE Universe was rocked by one of the most shocking news in WWE history. Edge, the rated R superstar who had battled through countless injuries to become an 11-time world champion, stood in the ring and announced his retirement. The announcement came without warning. Edge had just defeated Alberto Del Rio at WrestleMania to retain his World Heavyweight Championship, and fans thought they were seeing him at the top of his game. Instead, they were witnessing the beginning of the end. As Edge struggled to speak through his emotions, he thanked the fans, his family, and the business he loved. He relinquished the World Heavyweight Championship as the arena was stunned in silence. The retirement felt cruelly premature, but little did anyone know this wouldn't be the last we'd see of the ultimate opportunist.
What
seemed like a tragic ending would eventually become the setup for one of the most shocking returns in wrestling history. For 9 long years, Edge sat on the sidelines, watching the business he loved evolve without him. The retirement that had broken hearts in 2011 seemed permanent. Edge had moved on to acting and other projects, but you could see that a part of him would always miss that feeling of walking through the curtain. Then, at the 2020 Royal Rumble, the impossible happened. When Edge's music hit at number 21, the Houston crowd absolutely erupted. After years of neck rehabilitation and medical clearance that seemed impossible, Edge was back. He wasn't just back for a nostalgia pop, he was back full-time. The emotion was overwhelming. The man who had to walk away with so much left to give was now getting the opportunity to finish his story on his own terms. But going from one miraculous moment to another, this next one was about a dream that seemed impossible.
Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 30.
The Yes Movement reached its emotional peak at WrestleMania 30. Daniel Bryan, the underdog who WWE repeatedly told us wasn't the face of the company, stood on the brink of achieving the impossible. What made this moment so powerful wasn't just the in-ring action, it was the journey. Bryan had been screwed out of opportunities, denied his rightful place at the top, and told time and again that he wasn't what WWE wanted their champion to be. But the fans refused to accept that narrative. When Bryan locked in the Yes Lock on Batista and forced him to tap out, fans exploded in celebration. Confetti fell as Bryan held both titles high above his head, while the entire Superdome chanted in unison. In that moment, the bearded underdog from Aberdeen, Washington, proved that heart and determination could overcome any obstacle. But this triumphant moment shared a connection with another legendary WrestleMania celebration that came a decade earlier. WrestleMania 20 ended with an image that seemed to represent everything beautiful about professional wrestling. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, two men who had scratched and clawed their way through every independent promotion, through WCW's collapse, and through years of being told they were too small to be champions, stood together in Madison Square Garden. Benoit had just won the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event. Guerrero was the WWE champion. And as confetti fell, these two best friends embraced in the center of the ring, holding their titles. Both men had battled personal demons, overcome substance abuse issues, and fought to prove that heart could triumph over size and politics. Seeing them succeed together on the biggest stage in wrestling felt like poetic justice. Tragically, the moment would be erased from WWE history due to the unspeakable events that would come 3 years later. But going from championship celebrations, let's talk about a heartbreaking ending. At WrestleMania 24, Ric Flair's WWE career was on the line in a retirement match against Shawn Michaels. Michaels, who had idolized Flair growing up, didn't want to be the one to end the legend's career. But Flair, ever the competitor, demanded that Michaels give him everything. As the match reached its conclusion, Flair pulled himself up and dared Michaels to finish it. Shawn, tears visible in his eyes, mouthed those 4 devastating words before delivering sweet chin music. The 3 count that followed felt like the end of an era. The following night on Raw, Flair gave his final speech to a ring surrounded with wrestlers past and present, all standing on the stage to honor the 16-time world champion. Even The Undertaker himself paid respect to the Nature Boy. It's unfortunate that Flair would go on to ruin the beauty of this moment by coming out of retirement and wrestling in TNA. But speaking of retirements, Flair wasn't the only one who had an emotional retirement. On an episode of Raw in 2016, Daniel Bryan stood in the ring to announce that he was being forced to retire due to post-concussion syndrome. Just 2 years after Bryan's fairy tale WrestleMania 30 victory, the Yes Movement came to a devastating halt. Bryan was only 34 years old, still in what should have been his prime. He'd already been stripped of the championship he worked so hard to win due to neck injuries, underwent surgery, and fought his way back, only to be told that continuing to wrestle could have life-threatening consequences. But Bryan's story didn't have a sad ending. The leader of the Yes Movement would make his return to in-ring action at WrestleMania 34 and go on to become multi-time world champion before hanging up his boots on his own terms in AEW.
So he officially retired now?
For 11 years, Kofi Kingston was one of WWE's most consistent performers. But he was always seen as a mid-card guy, a tag team specialist, someone who would never get that one shot at the main event. Then, in early 2019, everything changed. A last-minute replacement in the Elimination Chamber led to an incredible performance that ignited something special.
Never got hurt,
the WWE
we wouldn't have got a Kofi
began
Mania.
to believe, and more importantly, so did Kofi. What followed was an emotional roller coaster called Kofi Mania. Week after week, Kofi overcame increasingly impossible challenges, giving us a story about brotherhood, loyalty, and refusing to give up on your dreams, no matter how long it takes. At WrestleMania 35, with his family watching from ringside and his New Day brothers cheering him on, Kofi Kingston defeated Daniel Bryan to become WWE Champion. Kofi proved that it's never too late, that persistence pays off, and that believing in yourself can change everything. However, not all emotional moments come from triumph or retirements. Sometimes, the most devastating moments come from betrayal.
Festival of
On an episode of Raw in 2017, Jericho thought he was attending a celebration of his friendship with Kevin Owens. What he got instead was one of the most brutal betrayals in WWE history. What made this betrayal so painful was the friendship that had seemed so genuine. For months, Jericho and Owens had been inseparable, creating comedy gold with The List and their bromance. Fans had invested in their relationship, laughed at their antics, and believed in their bond. Seeing it destroyed so callously by Owens, with Jericho's unconscious body lying in the wreckage of his celebration, hit harder than any heel turn. But while that betrayal broke our hearts, this next moment will mend it right back. The relationship between Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth was one of wrestling's greatest love stories. After losing a retirement match to the Ultimate Warrior, Savage was being viciously attacked by Sensational Sherry. But then, Miss Elizabeth ran to the ring to protect the man she'd once managed. Elizabeth pushed Sherry away and shielded Savage, who was battered and broken both physically and emotionally. When Savage finally realized who had saved him, the arena fell silent. The two embraced in the center of the ring, and fans gave them a standing ovation. There were no words, no grand speeches, just two people who clearly belonged together, reunited after too long apart. Savage hoisted Elizabeth onto his shoulder as the crowd chanted their approval. However, not every story has a happy ending in the WWE.
John! Jeff Hardy leaves WWE.
For months, CM Punk had antagonized Jeff Hardy about his past struggles, while fans kept showing their support for the charismatic Enigma. But on an episode of SmackDown, Punk defeated Jeff in a loser leaves WWE steel cage match, and Hardy's WWE career came to a sudden end. Fans were shocked in silence. Jeff sat in the ring devastated. This wasn't just a storyline loss. Jeff's contract was legitimately up, and he was leaving WWE in his prime. Watching him walk up that ramp for what everyone thought might be the last time was watching a piece of our childhood leave with him. But as painful as departures can be, nothing in wrestling prepares you for the moments when tragedy strikes without warning. May 23rd, 1999, a date that will forever live in infamy in wrestling history. During the Over the Edge pay-per-view in Kansas City, Owen Hart was being lowered from the rafters for his entrance, but something went catastrophically wrong with the harness mechanism. Owen fell approximately 78 feet, landing chest first on the top rope before hitting the ring. The arena fell into confused silence. Many fans initially thought it was part of the show, but as medical personnel rushed the ring and the severity became apparent, the horrible reality set in. Jim Ross had to inform the audience that Owen Hart had died. Wrestling had lost one of its genuinely good people, and the industry would never forget the night that exposed the harsh reality of pro wrestling. Tragically, Owen's death wasn't the only loss that would devastate the wrestling world.
Eddie Guerrero.
On November 13th, 2005, Eddie Guerrero was found unresponsive in his hotel room. Eddie had overcome addiction, rebuilt his life, won the WWE Championship, and become one of the most beloved performers in the business. He was a family man, a mentor, and living proof that people could change their lives. And then, suddenly, he was gone. During WWE's tribute show for Eddie, wrestlers who had worked with him for years broke down on camera sharing stories. Chris Benoit could barely speak through his tears. The tribute show wasn't just mourning a wrestler, it was mourning the loss of what Eddie represented to so many people. But from a loss that shook the entire wrestling world, let's talk about the day that WWE
That was the downfall of Chris Benoit as well.
For over 2 decades, The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania had become the most sacred thing in professional wrestling. Legends had fallen trying to end it. Each year, fans wondered if this would be the year, but the dead man always prevailed, until WrestleMania 30. When Brock Lesnar hit the third F5 and pinned The Undertaker, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome went completely silent. Fans sat in stunned disbelief, mouths hanging open, some crying, others just staring blankly. The wrestling world spent days trying to process what had happened. Some called it a brilliant shock, others called it a mistake that should never have been made. The image of the dead man, the most supernatural character in WWE
feel like he should have retired after that match.
Was almost too much to bear. Watching it end felt like watching our childhood die. And speaking of the end of our childhood, John Cena's retirement marked the true end of an era. Cena was the role model for kids who grew up watching him overcome the odds. When the 17-time world champion finally hung up his boots in 2025, it was the closing chapter of an entire generation. The superhero had finally laid down his guard. The champ had taken his final bow. The man who carried WWE during the PG era and gave us countless memorable moments saluted the fans one last time and walked back through the curtain. But speaking of moments, check out this video next about the wildest moments in WWE history.
Alright y'all, comment down below what y'all thought of my reaction to this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what y'all want me to react to next. I love y'all. Peace.